everyone. This is Joyce Odidison. I am so excited to be here with you for Wellness Conversations. We are so excited to bring this topic to you. The aspect of workplace wellness is not just unidimensional, it is multidimensional. There are so many aspects to it. And today I have Dr. Afiniki Akanet with me, and we're going to be talking about predominantly financial wellness. But in this wellness conversation, we are going to look at how it's interconnected. And we're also going to look at the diverse aspect to it, the diversity and inclusion aspect to financial well being. Because this month of July, we focus on how can we improve financial wellness for working people, individuals at work. What can you do as a corporation, as a leader, as an organization? What kinds of tips and tools and strategies can you provide for your employees as a team leader, for your team members? This is vitally important because what you will see is that when people are lacking financial wellness, it impacts all the other dimensions of their life. So, good morning, Nikki. Welcome here.
Hello, it's good morning for you, but I'm in the UK, so it's good evening for us.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Good to have you here with me today. So, you have wrote a book on financial wellness. Tell me a little bit about what came about, what motivated this, and um, what is the essence of the work that you've put together.
Okay, so I'm very proud of this book actually. It's my latest one released in May this year. It's called Money and Mental Wellbeing. The motivation for writing it really was from my experience as a general practitioner, what you would call a family doctor, um, over across the pond. But I see a lot of patients with mental health issues because mental health is my special interest as a doctor, as a general practitioner. And I was quite interested in how a lot of the issues were related to finances. And people sometimes didn't realize that a lot of their anxiety, depression, just the not being able to cope was because of certain entanglements they had gotten into financially that were stressing them out, sometimes very obviously, sometimes subconsciously. And I just thought, you know what, we all know it. Money and mental health are connected, but there isn't anything specific that has been put together to bring the two important topics together so people can see and connect the dots, as I say it. So at the top of the book, it says, life can be better when we connect the dots.
Yes.
Because I find that a lot of people will talk intelligently about money, they'll talk intelligently about mental health, but people don't often put it together and realize that the choices we're making in terms of how we make and manage money actually affect our health and happiness. So that was the motivation for writing the book. And I'm really hoping that it opens people's eyes, that it starts conversations, that people are able to really connect the dots and make better choices for their lives and future.
Oh, so important. So the
Mm.
work we do at Interpersonal Wellness Services is we look at 9 dimensions of wellness, and we look at spiritual, social, emotional, occupational. Then we look at intellectual, environmental, financial, and physical wellness and how they interact with the interpersonal dimension, that interconnectedness. As humans, we use
Mm.
money to communicate, we use money to express ourselves. We've been socialized to think that money determines our self worth. And how is that showing up in your practice?
I think that's the first thing, really, to realize what is your definition of money? What does money mean to you? And for a lot of people who consider money to be a definition of their self-worth, or how they value themselves, how much money they have in the bank account, what job they do, you can see that there will be a massive impact when there's any disruption to their job or to their finances. For example, with the financial crisis that we had, some people even committed suicide because there was just so much attached to that. And even now with the pandemic, some people lost their jobs and their sense of self-worth just disappeared because that was who they were, the job. So I find that we need to first of all define what money is and our relationship to it. I always think the best way to think about money is to think of money as a tool. Money is not the be all and the end all. Yes, money is important. It'd be foolish to sit down and say money is not important. I don't care about money, which some people deceive themselves by saying, which I'm like, seriously, if you didn't have money, you wouldn't even be in, sitting on the chair or drinking the coffee you're drinking because you need money to do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So money does help us to achieve things. It gives us choices. It gives us options. If I have more money, I could choose which schools to send my children to because money is not an object. But if I don't have money, then I have to go for the free options. If I have money, I can choose private healthcare. I can choose to have my scan tomorrow or today if I wanted to pay for it, or I have to sit down and wait for the free options available for those that can't pay for it. So money does give us options, and we can't deny that. So the realization of how important it is and what value we place on it personally really helps us to be able to make decisions and choices that will help our mental health, because that really ties in with self-awareness, because then you know how much you're willing to do for money, how far you would go for that money, what's the lines are, the boundaries are for you. Because yes, if I say money is not everything, then I would have my boundaries for, what, I'm not taking this, I'm not doing that for money. Whereas somebody else who thinks money is everything would sell their mother for money. They would do whatever it is to get that money. So self-awareness, understanding what money means to you, and the choices around how you make and manage money relating to your definition and understanding of money.
Mm-hmm. I like that when we think about people's self-worth and money and setting boundaries around, what are we going to do for money, and values around money. I think that's very, very important, because one of the things we teach in spiritual wellness is to understand your self-esteem and to build up your self-esteem by you as a person understanding who you are, your vision, your purpose, your goals, building your own faith and your sense of who you are as a person, your own culture and values. So, one of the things that we find becomes a challenge in the workplace when we look at workplace wellness, which is our main initiative in everything that we do, is that employees sometimes are struggling financially because they've made poor financial decisions, or they actually are ignorant of money. And I'm thinking of this particular individual as I speak, because usually when I speak, I have a face in mind, because I've encountered one of those situations in a situation where I'm intervening as a conflict analyst, so I'm being a coach. And this individual seems not to be aware that the she had to plan, meaning that, okay, in order for me to retire at a certain age, I need to be working, I need to be paying in to make to my pension, I need to save, so that if something happens, I will be able to take care of myself. And if I got sick or couldn't work for a period of time before retirement set in, I have a little nest egg to tide me over. So this individual believes that, my money I should spend, buy nice clothes, do these things, but never a saving, no investment. And understanding the idea that money either is working for you or it's walking away from you. Like, I see money as doing one or two things. It's growing, right? Growing in that word, or it's depleting. And for instance, when you buy a new car, it depreciates when you drive off the lot. But if you buy a house, it appreciates over the years. And every day you drive the car, it depreciates. Every day your house value appreciates. And I think some employees lack that basic money management understanding. And what we're trying to get organizations to do is to recognize that not everyone comes into the workplace with the same understanding of their own financial net worth, their ability, their money management skills, decision making skills around money, and even their own employability and earning income potential. So we're trying to get organizations to start having those kinds of financial wellness conversations with employees. What would you say to an employer who was looking at the repercussions of not doing that for the employees?
Okay. So I think it's important that we recognize that a lot of people don't have that financial literacy and haven't thought that far, and sometimes get to the point where they are because of their ignorance, which I have also been there personally. So much debt, going to medical school, all my training, not realizing that some kinds of debt were bad debt as opposed to some other kinds of debt. So it's like anything. We go to school to be taught. We've all complained about how nobody teaches you how to manage money in school. Fine, we've accepted it. Why don't we then take on that responsibility to learn these things ourselves? There are lots of books out there, lots of podcasts. If you don't like reading, it's something we need to take ownership of and realize I need to learn how to manage money for myself. For the employer, yes, it's important to do what you can to support people in that area, but we have to accept that no matter what the employer does as well, we're all made different. That's the reason why some people will always be employees and some people will always be employers. Some people will always be bosses. Some people will not want the opportunity even if you gave it to them because they just don't want that responsibility. Their mind doesn't work that way. But as an employer, if we don't make the effort to encourage employees to learn these things and to be empowered in this way to make better choices, then unfortunately they then start to resent the employer, they resent the company, they take out their frustrations. You're not getting the best out of them because then they're coming to work expecting 1 million from you, in their heads, whereas the maximum you can ever offer them is 1,000, because there will unfortunately always be a limit to how much you can make as an employer. And you always hear this complaints of people saying, oh, if only they'd give me a pay rise, that would solve all the problems. But it's not about how much money you make, it's about how you manage it. This is one of my husband's favorite sayings. And if we don't learn or encourage people to learn about these things, then there'll always be that conflict because we're expecting people to give their best. We're thinking we've done well for them. We've given them all these benefits. We've given them all these other things, and they're still not appreciating it, and they're moving on quickly. So even doing talks like this in the workplace, some places have lunchtime talks where they invite people like yourself to come and encourage and educate people, even giving people resources to be able to understand things like pensions, because you can do added years in some places if your dream is to retire earlier. But a lot of us just go to work and think, let me just do my work and come back home without paying attention to that. And sometimes just that nudge from the employer, we're doing this session on pensions, we're doing this session on opportunities for growth in the company, so that people can think, okay, where do I actually see myself? It's not just about 9 to 5 every day, finish and go, and then 30 years later resenting the employer. Yes, we should take responsibility and have that, think about where we want to be. But if the employers can actually give opportunity for that reflection, so when we do team building days or days when we sit and reflect, it would be useful to have opportunity to talk about things like this, because I'm sure the bosses talk about all these kinds of things amongst themselves. So just opening it up to people, because we also realize sometimes it's because of the exposure we have. If you're surrounded by people in the business world always talking about investments and things, then of course that would be the first thing you think about if you run into £100,000 inheritance.
Yes.
But if somebody is not surrounded by people like that, doesn't hear anything like that, all they hear about is buying the latest Gucci and Adidas, then of course the next money they get is going to be the next new Tesla, the next new high heels. That's the only thing they've heard about. So sharing that information is really useful. Yes, it might feel like, what are we doing this for? But it really opens people's eyes. And I find even in my line of work, sometimes it's just that one sentence that just breaks the ice and makes people realize, you know what, I've been doing it wrong. I just need to take a step back and review things. I just need to think about my future in this decision. Because sometimes even the perks that employers would give at work, thinking people would appreciate this because I'm adding more to their pension, I'm adding more to their benefits, free healthcare or private healthcare. The people you're doing it for are probably not appreciating it, because they've not understood how finances work. They just want to see the cash in their account so they can
Mhm,
spend it. So sometimes
mhm.
taking that time to teach, to bring people to teach, to because basically nobody's coming to work just because they have nothing else to do. People need to make money, people need to pay bills. So investing in that kind of education, those kinds of discussions in the workplace, that would be very helpful for the employees and brings you back full circle to happy employees who are feeling fulfilled and doing their best for your organization.
That is so very true because what we find sometimes is that the employees who are struggling financially tend to come to work and be more stressed. They tend to have more interpersonal conflicts because they're
Mm,
more irritable, they're more upset, they have creditors calling them, they're dodging, you know, um, people, they're trying, they're having their cars repossessed, they're always stressed.
mm,
And because they're lacking that financial, they're having problems in their relationships, or
mm,
they're divorcing because of financial issues, and so they tend to have real life struggles that
mm,
becomes a pattern. They tend to want to have to borrow money from their coworkers. They're looking for an advance. Can I
mm,
have an advance on my paycheck? These are realities. This is happening on the ground. And with our economic situation right now,
mm,
where we are on the verge of a recession, this is only going to exacerbate.
mm,
Because what has happened is we've had this huge resignation. A lot of
mm,
people have decided they don't want to be employees anymore.
mm,
They want to move into the gig economy, or and so they're not building security
mm,
necessarily.
mm,
They're living on the edge. More people are saying, you know what, I don't want a Mercedes. I can rent a Mercedes for the day if I want to. And so we've seen a shift in mindset
mm,
where the baby boomers were about actually buying and owning property and owning possession. And we see the next generation coming up and they're saying, I can I can go an Airbnb and live in a two-story house for a weekend. I don't need to have the burden of having that on a day-to-day basis.
mm,
And I think that brings balance in society
mm,
because it moves away the drive and the stress of having to have these things and the day-to-day anxiety of having to manage and have those financial pieces. But the actual struggles that I see in the workplace for those employees who are borrowing from their coworkers, trying to lend money, getting an advance, being in more conflict, being more irritable, that is growing. So as we go through the workplace and as you work with, in your practice day to day, are you seeing the same thing?
I think, yes, people are experiencing these things more, but whether they're bringing it to the workplace, I wouldn't really be able to say, because I'm just seeing it from the other side when they finally come to me as a doctor to say, I just need a sick note. I can't take it anymore. I'm not going to work. I need 2 weeks off work. I need a doctor's note, 4 weeks off work. And then it turns to 3 months off work because the problem hasn't been solved. It's the same social issues that are exacerbating the mental health problems. And then they end up going on benefits. And then they think, you know what, if I can make this much being on benefits, what's the point in going into work? And some
Mm,
people even go, you know what, let's just say I'm bankrupt, let's just move on and forget about this. Or let's bring down the expectations, realize I don't need to own a house, I don't need to own a car, I don't need to do this, like you say. But I think to try and prevent these things from getting that far, we can try and reduce the so-called professionalism leaving your home at the door when you come into work. Because when people think that they're being all professional and I'm not going to talk about my personal life, I'm not going to share my struggles, I'm just going to come to work, be like a robot, finish and go home and face those problems, then you end up crashing. And guess who's going to hear about it? It's that same employer who's then now struggling to find people to replace you because they didn't even see it coming. Whereas if you can talk about things like, I don't have childcare, my parents don't live in the country, I don't have transport, what can you do for me? Can I work from home 2 days a week? petrol is very expensive. Being able to talk about these real life challenges, like you say, early on before it gets to that point, then I'm not seeing them at the breakdown level. You're not seeing them at the point of conflict where they're getting irritated with everyone and fighting with everyone at work. We're not getting the point where people are so jealous of everybody else because of the choices you make. Because at the end of the day, it's your choice. If you don't want to own these things, you don't want to have all these things. That's
Yes.
amazing not to have any of the responsibility of monthly payments or
Mhm.
mortgage or whatever. But I always think it's all about intentional living. So if people do it intentionally, not that you say, oh, I don't want to buy a house, I'm just going to rent. And then you're complaining all the time about landlords and all that. And you're thinking, well, if you really want to be a landlord, save some money, a deposit, and you can be a landlord as well. Then you don't have to pay rent. If you decide you want to be a landlord and you take that mortgage, then buckle up and pay it monthly. It's all about intentional living rather than looking at everybody else is having a good life. That comparison really
Mhm.
gets people down, and then they come to us from the point of, oh, I don't know what's wrong, my life is not that bad, I just can't get out of bed, I have no motivation. And slowly it gets to the point of clinical depression, because then we're starting to talk about medications. And of course, psychotherapy is really helpful. But if we don't sort out the social issues that are contributing to what's going on, we've got rise in social media envy going on at the moment. Everybody
Mhm.
trying to look amazing on social media when really everybody's struggling, really. Everybody has their own problems.
Yeah.
Saying that, I said that to my daughter the other day, and she goes, well, I don't have any problems.
Yeah.
So let me say, most people have their own problems.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we just need to be more realistic in how we see
Yes.
life,
So true.
intentional choices that we make.
Yeah, you're very correct in looking at it about intentional, and I think that's really important because I like that we have that balance now. And as I read up more on this new way of living, and for those who are the minimalistic way of living, not owning property, not having the stresses of having these luxuries, but being able to afford them when you want to for short bursts and enjoy them for the short burst of time, which is probably as much time as you really enjoy them if you own them, because most of the times you're stress paying for them. So, they
That's
really,
what we're trying to avoid. You don't want to take the stressful type. You don't have to take the maximum. Just take what you can afford.
sure, really, when you think about it, because when you have to work every day to afford those things, and when you work every day and you just live minimalist and you save up and you say, I'm going to enjoy a Mercedes today, or I'm going to have a Tesla for the weekend, and that's for the once of the year. You really enjoy every moment of it, and you don't
You
have to
do.
think about it.
Especially after forking out that much, you will enjoy it. But if you it's the same, it's like you said, if you're paying so much for a house that you really can't afford, then you're working all hours to maintain it. You're not really enjoying it. The excitement of your friends seeing that you have a nice big house or a nice car finishes after, the first 2-3 weeks.
Yeah,
And that's it. You're left with the payments. So that's why I always say, you know what? Nobody really cares what you're doing. It's your life. So you live with the consequences of it, and we have to make decisions that are comfortable for our pockets, because if your finances are not comfortable, you're feeling the pinch every single day. I want to be able to work half time and come back home and enjoy my house. I don't want to be working all hours and never having time to spend in the house that I'm paying for.
I know.
It's just,
What's the benefit of having
yeah,
a house that you are outside working 24/7 to pay for the house you never enjoy living in it, right?
I know.
So those are some of the challenges, and I think that's where when we talk about financial wellness, and many times clients ask us, or even employers ask us, well, Joyce, are you guys financial wellness expert? I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not. But what we do is moving through that intentional living,
Yeah.
that mindset, right? Creating that mindset that, oh, I should learn more about money management. Am I managing my money very well? Do I
Mhm.
have enough money?
Yeah.
Am I what is my earning potential?
Mhm.
Right? And am I exhausting my earning potential? Am I living within, or am I earning as much as I can earn? And if so, do I want to increase my earning potential? How do I do that? And like you said, you went back to school as a physician, so you could be in living the quality of life that you do. But there is of course that, do I want the struggle of doing that? And I think that's the questions we have to ask. And that's what well-being is. It's understanding the possibilities, understanding the options and the opportunities, and knowing, and then be able to rationalize and say, this is the choice I want to make based on the information that I have, and I am content with it. Well-being is a sense of contentment. And
Exactly.
when we lack that in any area of our lives, we are unwell.
Yeah. And the thing is, I speak about this in one of the chapters in my book about knowing the difference between needs and wants. Sometimes people think that having time off is a want. I would like to have a break. I would like to have a holiday, but it's actually a need. It's
Mhm.
good to have time to rest. Some people think having time with their family is a want. You don't have to have time with your family. I'll get on by. I'll see them when I'm 60, when I retire. We'll have enough time together then. But the problem is, if you miss all those years now, it's going to be a miracle to be able to restore that relationship when you're retired. And some people would argue that they'd rather work all hours now, invest in property and all sorts of things, maximize their earning potential, maximize all the hours they're awake working so that they can relax more when they're older, which that's their valid argument. But like you say, it's about getting to a point where you're happy with your decisions. You're not saying one thing and feeling the opposite when you're by yourself. Because to be honest, nobody, I always say, I can't possibly care about your problems more than you care about them. So if you feel that spending all hours working so that you can prove a point to everyone that you did it, and then when you go back to bed at night, you're shattered, you're shouting at everybody in your house, you can't sleep, you're stressed, you're drinking 10 cups of coffee a day to keep going, your blood pressure is through the roof, who are we really deceiving? At the end of the day, nobody's going to be there when you're dealing with the struggles. So we make the decisions that we can live with. If we're happy to go through those challenges and those struggles, because yes, there will be times, which I do talk about in the book as well, that we have to push ourselves and do things that are not ideal. For example, there was a time when I was training to be a doctor, when I was a junior doctor, and I was working long on call hours as part of the training, which I'm grateful for now because that's part of the experience I'm riding on now to be able to make decisions quickly as a general practitioner. But in that period of time, I didn't have my parents living in the country. I had to depend on friends from church and different places to help me pick up children. But in my head, I knew there's an ending. It wasn't, that's not my lifestyle forever. That's not the life
Exactly.
I'm living. There's an ending. It's just for 1 year. It's just for 2 years. I had a limit. I've discussed it with my family. We all understood what the plan was. My husband was very supportive. My baby, thankfully, was very young, couldn't care less as long as she was fed. So I thought, okay, this is the time to do this. So that now, when they really care, I'm available to pick them up from school. I'm available to watch movies with them, to take them to places. And yes, I could be earning more, working more hours, but I choose to work less hours to be able to spend time with them. And we can't ever judge anyone because yes, I know we joke about things, but we can't judge anyone from a distance saying, oh, people are working all these hours or whatever. They hopefully they know what they're doing, but if they don't and they're just doing it because that's what everybody else does, I'm hoping that they listen to things like this so that they can
Mhm.
reflect and make changes, because we have to review from time to time. I do a review every few months, just see, am I actually living the life I want to live? Have things cropped up? Because sometimes things just encroach and take your time, and you think, I'm working part-time so I can spend more time with my children, but all of a sudden it feels like something else is taking that time. This is not
Exactly.
good. We
Yeah.
need to readjust. I need to change job. I need to change how I do things.
Yeah.
So that's all about readjusting, reflecting, and being intentional.
Absolutely. All about getting and improving our lives, because our lives are day-to-day adjustments. It's the little adjustments we make, be it financial. And that's why we like to talk about well-being as multidimensional and very inclusive, because you could be making choices socially that affect you financially. You could be
True.
making choices intellectually that will affect you financially. You could be making spiritual choices and
Yeah.
affecting you financially.
Mhm.
So, emotional, occupational, all these areas, you're making choices every day that will impact you financially. Even the friends you have can
Exactly.
impact your financial well-being. And so we need to start recognizing that everything in our life is so interconnected. And one of the things we do with the wellness assessment is give clients access to assess how well they're doing in these 9 areas and to come back quarterly. We say, don't just do it one time. It's GPS. GPS changes if you move direction.
Yeah.
So come back and do it again. Do it quarterly. See what has changed. Are you truly living your intention for well being in these areas? And if
Yeah.
you're not, what's in the way? What do you need to change? What do you need to adjust? And it's the same idea of teaching financial wellness in the workplace with your employees. Yes, you need to bring in a financial advisor so people learn about investment. You need to bring in someone about budgeting so people learn about budgeting.
Yeah.
You need to create resources for people around how they can advance, how they can increase their career potential, their earning potential. They could get raises, all these opportunities. They have to learn about money management. They have
Yeah.
to understand what it is.
Yeah.
So all of these things, you bring in a financial coach, you bring in all these areas and you cover the wide garment of choices that people know so they can understand how these things impact all these areas of their life, and everything is so interconnected. Like you're saying, you're working less to spend time with your child, and all of a sudden you start volunteering and you're leading this church choir and you're doing this and you're not spending as much time with your children. So not only is your earning potential down, but you are not doing the thing you intended to do, and then you're out of balance, so it's no longer that well-being. And that's where we strive to create and maintain well-being on a continual basis.
And it's all about control as well, isn't it, Joyce? Because when we feel more in control, so I'm not just doing things because that's life, that's what I have to do. I'm actually deciding this is what I want to do and I'm living the life I want to live. That's amazing for your mental health. Because if somebody says to you, why are you at home at this time? Other people are making millions in London. You're like, that is my choice, actually. If somebody says to you, why are you not volunteering in this thing or whatever, you're like, actually, it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but this is my choice for this phase of life.
Absolutely.
And everything is intentional so that you feel more in control. And control, having an internal locus of control is great for our mental health. When we start feeling like things, the government, our employer, everybody else is controlling everything and we can't make any decisions, then we start to feel low in ourselves. We start to feel anxious because nothing is
Yes.
predictable. And then you start getting to that point of panic attacks and just not feeling well in yourself to the point of, mental illness.
So true. Very, very true. And there are so many things. One of the things that we're doing at the Global Workplace Wellness Summit that we're hosting in September 20th and 29th is, do we have the live summit and then we have the virtual stream, of course, so people can view it from all parts of the world. But one of the things that we're focusing on is that mental health and addictions recovery, because we're seeing that addictions are on the increase with the pandemic, as well as mental illnesses. So we are promoting and raising funds for one of our community mental health and addictions recovery provider here in the province, Surreal Inc. Because when EAP runs out and before short-term disability sets in, community is here, and when all of those other benefits, it's good to have those community programs as a backup or as a place to start
Yeah.
to help. And not everyone has any significant EAP program or short-term program, short-term disability program to help them.
Yes.
So we know that these are things that many people with financial various the lower socioeconomic background struggle with, getting the right recovery for mental illness and as well as in addiction issues. But financial issues tend to be a trigger for people to start up drinking or drugs, or it leads to the addictive behavior can lead to financial ruin. And people tend to go there when they are depressed about their financial situation. So how much of that are you seeing? Is there any increase in your area?
Yes, definitely. And we do have services to help with that, but we often find that there's low motivation to get support. In fact, just today I was talking to a patient about her smoking, and she said to me, you know what, she's just had a baby, she's only smoking five cigarettes a day, and she says, oh no, I step out to smoke, it's just that 5 minutes to myself of luxury. And I thought, you've just had a baby, your expenses are gonna be going up. How much it costs to raise a child. She was proud of herself, telling me how she quit smoking when she was pregnant, but she's gone back to it now. And that's the whole thing about reflecting from time to time, because if the stress is coming from finances, really, before the addiction becomes such a problem, we need to think, this thing I'm doing to feel better, is it really going to be causing me more problems or less problems? We have a NHS funded smoking cessation service, but even just to engage with that, some people struggle with, because they're at the point where they just feel like, you know what, I don't care. Tell me about the cancers, tell me about everything. I don't really care. I just need that 5 minutes of luxury to myself, 5 times a day where I can just step outside and smoke. And then you think, where is all that coming from? It's back to the basics that we talked about, making those intentional decisions and realizing that it's all connected. And yes, I'm denying myself that 5 minutes of luxury so that me and my child can have a better future, so that I don't have more stress in future because I couldn't give up 5 minutes of luxury 5 times a day.
Mhm.
So it's that delayed gratification and watching things while they're seeds before they become a full grown tree that's difficult to uproot. Because a lot of
Yes.
things, even we talked about diverse communities, things like being the nice brother or cousin or uncle in England that sends money to people in another country. Yes, it's nice to help. Yes, it's nice to give to charity, but we need to really think. I do have a section in my book about um, questions you can ask, 3 questions you can ask yourself before any significant or regular expense. If you can't afford it long term, if you genuinely can't afford it, there's no point in starting and thinking, yeah, let's just plod along because of my reputation or because of how people will see me, because that's just going to cause you mental health problems. And if you break down, can't go to work anymore, guess who's going to suffer? It's your family, your loved ones, the people you really cherish, that are going to suffer. So it's about watching those little things before they become a big thing that affects our mental health. Even the thinking you can help, if you can afford it, that's great, but really think about it. Is it helping? Is it just me doing it because I feel like that's the thing to do because it's expected, or is it actually helping? You know what,
Mhm.
somebody said to me a few years ago that some people, giving them money is not the best thing you can do for them.
So
You
true.
think that if I gave somebody money because they asked me for money would be a help. That is not always the most helpful thing. Sometimes people need to work through their problems and figure out how they got there in the first place. Sometimes they need to learn to work for that money themselves and then they appreciate it more. Sometimes they just need to find other ways, because money is not always the solution. Sometimes
Mhm.
you can rejig your diary, your calendar. Sometimes you have to think about your expectations as well, because all of us, everybody wants to be the millionaire that's driving the Mercedes or whatever you want to do. But do you have what it takes to get there and to maintain it? If I gave you all of that now and you don't have the work ethic to maintain it, you're going to lose it all in one day. So sometimes giving people that money that they ask for is not always the solution. So you've given it to them, you haven't helped them, you've not helped yourself because you've not been able to invest, you've not helped your family because now they're lacking some things that they should have. And it's just a vicious cycle. Then you end up in problems where people just end up in vicious cycles of poverty upon poverty, and people having to work into their 70s, 80s, because they've not been able to plan, they've not been able to say no, they've not been able to put boundaries. And I think that's the bit I'm passionate about, catching things, nipping them in the bud before they get too far and end up causing mental problems.
That is so true, Nikki. I am so glad you're saying that, because when we start to look at the diverse community, the BIPOC community, people, who are living in social situations, be it racial, gender, class, they tend to be the ones who struggle more with financial wellness. And it could be because they have not had opportunities, or they have more social pressure on them. Those of us who are immigrants, sorry, I'm in Canada, you're in the United States, you're in England rather.
Yeah.
We see many of our colleagues and friends and family that immigrated like us, the pressure of taking care of family members back home, and all of those things. And though we want to support and though we want to help, we can create situations where people become enabled, right? They become
Yeah.
enabled in laziness or lack of motivation or just unrealistic expectations. So we do have to question. And so tell us a little bit more about your book and how those who are watching this can get, because can get a copy, because I think it's so important um, for us to talk about those. They are very relevant in our community for those of us from these communities and the social pressures to send money and support other people and give to other people. Not that that's a bad thing, but we should do it within our means.
Yeah.
And I cannot send you $500, but I can send you $100.
Mm.
That is all I can send you. I can't send it every month, but I can send it once a quarter. What can
Mm.
you do with that? And I think it's important for us to start to think that and train those who are in our lives to understand and to money manage as well, because we can manage money with anything. If someone gives you $100, you can manage that $100. If someone gives you $1 million, you can manage that $1 million. It's all about the money management skills and
Yeah.
the expectations that we set
Exactly.
up and we
Mm.
enable. So
Yeah.
love that.
Yes, I like that you said that. And sometimes it's also attitude to debt. I remember one of my friends gave me a proper wake-up call. We were in university together, and I used to be on about how, oh, I need to send money to this person. They're asking me for money from home. I was a student working part-time to be able to pay my rent. And she said to me, Nikki, you've got minus whatever in your account. They've got zero. Who do you think is richer? You're taking from your minus, your overdraft, to go and send money to somebody who's on zero. Do you realize the foolishness in that? And then you suddenly think, just because I live in England doesn't mean I should just whoever asks me for money, I should send money to. And also making people understand that money is money in whatever currency, wherever you are. So it's not, because I live in England, I have to send you money. There are people living in Nigeria that send money to people in England. There are people living in Somalia that send money to people in America. So it's not about where you are, it's managing your finances wisely.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you can't be sitting there telling me to buy you I don't know, Manchester United football jersey. That's what some people used to ask for. I think it cost like 100 and something pounds at the time. And that was something I hadn't even bought for myself because I couldn't afford it. And then somebody's sitting somewhere else on Facebook asking you to buy that. And for some reason, we think it's okay because we want to maintain a reputation. We don't want to look like we're poor or we're stingy. And my book really discusses thinking about our mental health and looking after our relationships more than the reputation, because I'd rather have an honest relationship with someone. If you only love me because of my money or because of what I'm giving to you, then it's not really, it's hardly a relationship. We should just realize what it is. I'm just being a cash cow, aren't I? But if you love me and I say to you, I don't have money for this, I can't help you with this, but I'll be there for you, we can talk about it, we can
Mhm.
we can be friends, then you know who your real friends are, who your real family are. And I think, even amongst people who are not immigrants, I'm seeing things like this as a general practitioner, where people feel so pressured. For example, a lot of older people now feeling really pressured to help with childcare, because that is one of the major costs. I don't know about in Canada, but here it's one of the major costs for
Yeah.
employees. And some people guilt their parents into feeling like, you need to sit at home and look after my children so I can go to work. After all, that's what grandparents do. And the poor grandparent is thinking, I really hate doing this. I've got arthritis. My whole body is sore. I just wanted to rest. I worked hard all my life. So they come and tell me, the doctor. Of course, I can't say it to the children, but I'm thinking it's all about boundaries. They need to be able to say to them, I can't do it. I can only do one day for you a week. You need to pay for childcare the other days or speak to somebody else to help.
Mhm.
Or I can only do 2 days a week, or whatever you can do. Or if you can't, explain that you can't and not feel guilty, because at the end of the day, yes, we're meant to be there for each other, we're meant to help each other. And I pray that I'm strong enough to be able to help my children when they have children, but we shouldn't feel that these things are obligations that then cost us mentally and financially, while we're suffering in silence and dying young because we can't be bothered to set boundaries. So you did
Yes.
ask about my book. It is available on Amazon. It's called Money and Mental Wellbeing by Dr. Afiniki Akanet. I don't think there's any other book called that. So just searching Money and Mental Wellbeing on Amazon will bring it up. And please remember to leave reviews. If any
Yes.
Canadians read it, I'd love to hear from people there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll definitely be sending the link. You send me the link. We'll have it as well when we post this on our website. It's very exciting to talk to you today, Nikki, and especially getting your medical perspective on this as we move into these wellness conversations and start to look at how we can start unfolding and expanding on these issues, where whether it is from a very multi-dimensional perspective, and that includes ethnicity, culture, gender, and what that means for us. Because financial wellness touches all of us. It's
Yeah.
part of our reality. We can't. We need money in order for us to transact our life in society. We almost cannot do anything. Even if you barter, you still have some form of exchange. And so, understanding financial wellness and understanding even the barter system is a whole other area. And I'm going to get someone to come and talk on bartering because it's a growing area, and there is a lot of lack of awareness in that area as well. How people can start doing more creative ways to generate financial well-being for themselves. As you said, it's all about mindset. It's all about intention. It's all about expectations. And once you set your expectation, it may look odd to others, but you will be at a place of well-being.
Yeah.
Internally, you will be content
Mm-hmm.
because you're reaching your goals, and
Yeah.
that's what's important for all of us. So thank you so much, and it's just been a pleasure talking to you and listening about your book.
Thanks for having me, Joyce. It's been a pleasure.